have kind of two main things going on with the movie, both of which are really hard to translate to a live experience. One is Jack Nicholson's character, Jack Torrance, this idea that he is losing his mind early in the movie, and it's actually what we're going to be doing out here in front of the facade in addition to the music. You're hearing that interview, that first interview that he had when he goes to the Overlook Hotel, and Mr. Ullman feels obliged to tell him about the past caretaker, a guy who is referred to as Charles Grady in that scene. And then, for some reason, later in the film when he shows up as a ghost and introduces himself to Jack, he's Delbert Grady, which is one of the many mysteries of The Shining. There's all kinds of things like that with that movie. But in addition to this idea that Jack's losing his mind, that you have to somehow convey in this maze, there's also Danny, his son, who has the Shining, which is where the title of the book and the movie come from, the ability to telepathically communicate, to also see future events before they happen. So you kind of have to deal with both of those things. When my art director Chris and I first sat down to design this maze, the first thing we did is we just made a list of every element we thought had to be in this maze if we were going to do a Shining maze. And then we proceeded to figure out how to do that. And a lot of it involves resisting the temptation that every haunt designer has, that as soon as you walk in, someone jumps out and tries to chop you in half with an axe or something like that. That's not really Kubrick's film. So we're trying to walk that fine line between presentational things that are purely visual and I'm going to chop you in half with an axe, and hopefully we've done both of that. It's the same exact challenge we faced with The Exorcist. When we really sat down to look at The Exorcist last year, we realized really quickly that, oh my God, the whole movie takes place in a bedroom, and there's an 11-year-old girl, and she never gets out of bed, and it's just going to be looking at stuff. So we had to come up with our own way of paying homage to all of those things you have to see in an Exorcist maze, but also scaring the hell out of people. And for us in The Exorcist, which happened to be in this exact same spot, that really became the character of Pazuzu, the demon that you just see as flash frames in the movie. Every time we went into the bedroom, The Exorcist, we immediately took you into total darkness, and that figure of that demon would be the thing that was scaring you. And by combining those two elements, the presentational and the hard scare, that equaled a really successful experience. So we have to do a lot of the same type of thing with The Shining. We could, and there's certain we couldn't.
Okay.
So you have to get as close as you can, and you're allowed to.
Okay.
So, but the performers are all going to wear. We've gotten more into silicone masks, like Exorcist. If you saw the priest characters, like the Max von Sydow character, those guys were all wearing like really high-end silicone masks, and they look super realistic. You can get really close to them, and they look realistic. So it's impossible to cast, 15 performers that look like that for this character. So we decided to go that route, just like we did with like Linda Blair's character in The Exorcist, so that they all look consistent and age appropriate too, because it's hard to find people that are the right age for that as well.
But it's a stylized. It's not.
It's a little, it's not specifically his likeness.
And what was it like working with the Kubrick people?
Great. Yeah.
They're into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
What about Stephen King? Did he have any?
No, he doesn't. We're not. It's all specifically Kubrick's movie, so it's specifically that film.
So I feel like when I think of the movie, I think of a lot of big empty spaces, which
which is the antithesis of a maze.
Right. So how do
you want to do the opposite?
Right. How do you go about approaching that, but also conveying that kind of isolation in the maze?
It's really the same challenge we had when we did Crimson Peak. The first time I saw Crimson Peak, I went to Guillermo and was like, that house is like 100 feet tall. It was like 100 feet tall. And you when and that set was built practical too. When they filmed it, they built that whole damn house, and you would look at the spaces and go, "Oh my God!" First of all, the entry of the house in Crimson Peak is bigger than our home is, you know. So that's why you've got to figure out how to get people into an environment that will be conducive for scaring them, which is more confinement than it is big open spaces. So that's why we decided to use the hedge maze as kind of like the way to get in and the way to get out, because, well, nothing really happens as far as action on those big open spaces like that, you know. It's more what happens in room 237 with the old woman. That's a very compact space. Or, you know, the bathroom with the Here's Johnny scene. That's a compact space. You know, the big wide open ballroom scenes. He's really just playing handball in the movie. You know, so you're trying to make sure that you can hit all of the iconic moments in the movie, but also make it serve what a live experience has to serve, which is the name of the game is to scare them. You know?
How hard was it to cut out scenes from the movie and that you wanted to add into the maze, and then the ones that
Yeah, there's certain ones on the list like Lloyd, you know, but then when you really look at it, you're like, he's just talking to a bartender. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing inherently scary in that scene, you know. It's like, well, it's a great scene in the movie, but, you know, mazes aren't dialogue. Mm-hmm. That's the big difference when you translate a movie, is you're having to convey things like story visually as opposed to with dialogue, because it just, we do use dialogue, and we do have actors lip syncing to little short sound bites, but anything beyond that gets lost in a chaotic environment like a maze. So you're usually trying to, you know, look at a scene and decide, A, how important is this to the overall franchise, and B, does it lend itself to something we would want to experience in a maze. Mm-hmm.